Good morning. Take two. Uh, I wanted to get a video out this morning before I step out into the world and get on my remodel job site. A lot's going on in the world, and a lot's always going on in the world. Uh, I guess on one level, it's good news that something is trying to refine itself in the imagination of the collective humanity. Um, but it's like two worlds are knitting themselves into a third thing that um, is by its nature, I feel, staying anonymous, because that's how evolution works. It's if we truly knew what we were going to be, it would affect what we are, in a kind of a detrimental way, I feel. So the secret can't be revealed because it's being created off the remains of an ongoing system and ideology, moving forwards through both folks that are maybe more locked into their routines and then folks that challenge the routine with imagination and questions that they actually have answers to from time to time. Pushing the boundaries, let's say. Um, there's old old attitudes and old ways of reacting that are still going to be haunting humanity for uh, centuries, I figure, because the world is fractured. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I just mean in the sense of continents and countries and different collectives that are not a homogenous situation. And I don't see anything creating homogeny in like a one world situation. I think that the one world philosophy is, besides the facts, it's a projection of the patriarchy of I think it comes from the one God simplification. Um, it just makes it easier for the ego to imagine a simpler picture that is closer to the reality of itself. And if you've traveled and really paid attention uh, to what you're looking at, and more importantly, what's looking at you, you see that people are living out um, a very specific situation based on where they're at. It's like a library of books. Sylvia Plath isn't Benjamin Franklin, and Abraham Lincoln is not Edgar Allan Poe, and Charles Baudelaire is not Mary Shelley. Uh, they're very distinct authors of the human experience, a particular place, even different cities within the same country. And individuals have come and gone for thousands of years in those places and have been distinctly molded by those places and the history of those places and the vibe of those places. And of course, the vibe is often more around what historical humans have built. And yet, in some of the places, nature remains dominant, like Iceland, for instance, or Hawaii, or the jungles of the Amazon, or anywhere the Alps cut through. And Iran is a good example of this, and Colorado, where nature is visually the dominating scale that looms over, and then other places that are more horizontal and don't have these references. You see monuments built almost to take their place in a way, like the Statue of Liberty or the Great Pyramids of Giza or Notre Dame. So I think it's worth considering that this tapestry, it's a kind of a quilt of sorts, is not going away. And whatever is evolving through the imagination, like with AI and the internet being more and more refined and interconnected, and social media, people will respond to it in different places in different ways. And what I want to do this morning is just focus on the individual and warn against melancholia, like a disassociative romance with being de-romanticized around life based on current events, like an ongoing genocide in Gaza, in the West Bank, and Lebanon. These are definitely worthy of melancholia and depression and anger and rage and deep angst and hopelessness. These are all emotions that are legitimate, but I think it's important to remember that to not let it get you down, so far down that you become dysfunctional or unable to take care of yourself, and whatever circumstances might come your way that uproot your life, and to remain steadfast and active in the face of resistance and the lethargy that comes with those feelings, to exercise, move around, read a book, talk to a friend, go for a walk, travel, do someone a favor, speak to someone that you haven't spoken to for a while, just to remind yourself that you have the power to interact with these feelings so that they're not chasing their own tails, so to speak. And I wanted to, around focusing on the individual, speak a little bit about the Iranian and the United States slash Israel situation. You could see that there's a huge gulf, no pun intended, between the American psychology and mentality and the Iranian psychology and mentality. You have a television personality president versus PhD scholars and adults coming to the table. And this also goes for men on the United States side that really haven't grown up, who still it's like you see a puddle on the ground and you see a reflection, and you go out and you invest $13,000 in spelunking gear because you feel like you've discovered a new cavern, and you get back there and you go to dive in and it's 1 inch deep. You forgot to test it with your spelunking probe, and it's like that. It's when you have men who have not matured and for whatever reason their choices along the way have not really molded them to like a level of self-analysis and self-accountability, and their travels have not done them any favors either, in the sense of being humbled by older civilizations and culture and philosophy, humanity in general. Maybe this is for another time, a deeper conversation around how empathy is built and different layers of empathy and compassion and caring for others, and how that even gets to be a mandatory thing to do and be in one's life, because it's a desire that comes from within. It's not something that you can just teach someone and then they do it. It's a priority, and how that priority is developed and maintained. Because sometimes you can be a caring person in 2013 and a bigoted racism in 2026. So it's not a permanent characteristic of a person. It has to be maintained consistently, and it gets challenged as well, because not only does it need to be maintained, it needs to evolve and grow. And that's the tough part, is shedding the skin of what you thought you were done with. And there's a timeline you don't know about. And I've pretty much verified this in my life, where the unknown remains such so that you can know more. And it's like some kind of law, and you just will not figure out the mystery. But the mystery will figure you out one way or the other. It's not a human. It's not human, and it's not alien either. It's the stuff that moves planets and ignites stars, and so it's. I mean, I say those things, and it's just a sense that there are forces that are too big to categorize in a human way. They're too abstract, multifaceted abstractions that remain neutral. They can't be owned or claimed by any terrestrial or celestial personality, let's say. And back to Iran and the United States, there's just a huge gap between the level of maturity and ability to rationalize and notice the values of respect, dignity, apology, self-accountability, being humbled. There seems to be an unnatural fear, at least unnatural in the sense of the price that is going to be paid for avoiding it. Maybe a better phrase would be illogical, but that's never been a concern of America in general, or the U.S. State Department, Pentagon, think tanks. They don't think reasonably. They think selfishly, and selfishness is never reasonable. It's like soft psychopathy. It's like a child can be a child in the safety of an adult home. But if the psychology of a child was to, say, become a king, then you have a very different situation. Kind of like Joffrey in Game of Thrones. And it's not to say that it would be a negative version of a child. It could be an innocent child that doesn't have, who isn't a budding psychopath like Joffrey was. But with a child, those tragedies are still going to occur if there's not an adult around to keep them in check with their decisions, because they don't have a basis to rule. They're going to have advisors playing parts of a mature mind and helping them deliberate over things. And there's no one there for Donald Trump or Netanyahu or any of the sort of surface level value systems that are going on in how America delegates and discusses things. They don't really discuss. It's more of a I want, you have, why can't I have what you have kind of situation. And I think Iran is the perfect mirror for a materialistic regime to get slowly humbled. Iran is not Palestine 1948. It's not going to be easy, and it won't happen. America and whoever they drag into their illegal war will be slowly humbled like they were in Vietnam, but even worse because it involves their neighbors. Their neighbors being other countries in the Middle East that are hosting their military coercion, leverage bases. And Israel's in a kind of a death spiral as far as ideological impunity. It's been impudent of morality and ethics since its inception, even on paper. If you read the Balfour Papers and Theodore Herzl's ideas, and even things that Ben Gurion said in his first, Israel's first prime minister, it started off nutty, and it will end nutty. So I think this is how things work in life. That you can't stop a life lesson from crawling into the grave if it's destined to do such. And something that starts off with no humanity and no morality, and then suddenly, and has been propagandized as the only democracy in the Middle East, the world's most moral army, a holy prophecy come true. All these things are ultimately lies. And the human psyche, the human person understands that the hen is coming home to roost. And it's a law, like an ancient, old, ancestral law, that what goes around comes around. And it's and that will never change. What you hide gets bigger. And again, that's like a kind of a, for lack of a better word, divine justice, or how the internal world works on an individual level and on a mass consciousness level, where evolution will not let you fail in being revealed. Somehow, some way, even if it's just a gram, that satisfies evolution. If you get out of there with a pound, great, good for you. But that's not the point. The point is that you are not a static being. You cannot complete yourself. You cannot be finished. it is impossible, unless, of course, you expire physically, and that's pretty much a done deal, at least as far as this particular timeline is concerned. Indisputable there. So, but as a living, breathing experiencer, it's a farcical situation where folks will often posture themselves as complete and immovable and uncompromising, shaking the fist to Odin. And this only provokes evolution more to complex, sort of make your life more complex. And so it's not going to be an easy situation. With Iran, the mature player, the one teaching adults in America how, like, they're the ones modeling adulthood, adult behavior, deliberation, parental reminders that the teenager can't be and do everything they're threatening to be and do. That's just not how the world works. When you've got actual cards on your side, I remember as a child, I think I was in like the third or fourth grade, I decided I've had enough. My two grandmothers raised me, my great grandmother and grandmother, and one night I decided I'm going to run away. So, and this was just a early existential crisis, some kind of reaction I had, probably over some sort of disciplinary injustice, and or just my nature of wanting to be raised by wolves. So I took two old, like, for whatever reason, my grandmothers would save things that they never used, and then throw them away in bulk later. It was like some kind of hunter-gatherer thing left over from days gone by. So they had a section where all the old empty bread bags were, these long tubular bags. And so I took two of them and I stuffed food and clothes and probably some toys, and I had two of them in my hands, and I was locked and loaded, ready to roll. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think my grandmother was in the living room when I stepped out and towards the door, and she said, "Where are you going?" And I said, I'm running away." And she said, "Okay." And the story may have gone another way too. It may be that I snuck out. I didn't tell anyone. So it's hard. I'm not really sure which one of those scenarios, but the main point is that I got out of the house. It was pitch dark, except, of course, there was some street lights, so I guess it wasn't pitch dark because we lived by like a highway going through the city, so to speak, but we were on the outskirts of the main city. And so I got outside and I started walking around the house, and then I kind of jogged around the house a couple times. And then I was like, "Oh, this is not going to work out." So I went back inside, and humbly retire to my man cave. So it's life is like that. It's in charge. The world at large is not humanity. The world at large is the stage humanity is on, and the circumstances that arise when we push buttons and we make assumptions, and we get surprised and or elated uh, or disappointed and resentful. And education changes a person. Knowing things changes a person. Study, scholarship changes a person. And I encourage people to um, go back to school, not necessarily pay for college or university, but educate your curiosity, educate your angst, educate your depression, your melancholy. Um, Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath, Charles Baudelaire, uh, Rainer Maria Rilke, Rumi, Hafiz, uh, Holderlin, Schopenhauer, Kant, Nietzsche. Uh, the list goes on and on. And or historians or uh, electricity for dummies, or not dummies. It's don't stop growing. I mean, you're going to keep growing physically uh, as far as aging is concerned, but don't let being haunted by the effects keep you from investigating the causes. Um, watch the thoughts and see what they need, what they want, um, and uh, it can get lonely when you're just not caught up in the same uh, method acting as before. Uh, and it's important to hear from people uh, that it's possible to keep working in the workshop of yourself um, with earnest dignity and respect. Um, that is, if you're privileged to not have an ethno terrorist regime carpet bombing your neighborhood, then things are put on hold and uh, something else is happening. And how it is that adults don't grow up is a complex situation. I think a lot of it has to do with privilege and money and um, a whole system of how the stage is set and old habits die hard. Um, the colonial mindset, this privilege over um, this sense of privilege is a mental health crisis. It's a mental health condition. Um, it's like the ego folds in on itself and hyperinflates because it cannot be humane. It cannot be empathetic. So it feeds on itself, and weird things start happening. There's no outgoing male, let's say. Um, Selfishness, ultimately, but not the kind of selfishness that does YouTube videos, but something more akin to vengeance, or wanting to enact a price on a target in the past by projecting it onto a look-alike target in the present. Some kind of being like beating on the war drum while being trapped inside a war drum. It's for another discussion, I feel like, to how to map all that out. But this morning I just wanted to get a message out there to people who might be feeling discouraged, or like they're losing their minds, because it's sort of a balls to the wall situation these days. As things become more and more transparent, people will start seeing that it's always been this way. It's just been covered up by distractions, and a kind of privilege lifestyle. And yet underneath that lifestyle, real life circumstances are occurring. And it's not to say that real life is not happening when an illusion is taking place. That's real life too. It's allowed. Life allows anti-life. It's not worried. It's been around for billions of years. I mean, what's a few, unintelligent destroyers going to do to a phenomenon that creates black holes and swallows universes? I mean, it's really no big deal. It's only a big deal to the scale that people like Donald Trump and Netanyahu work on, which are just us little ants in the scale of larger things. So, not to get stoic or devalue our struggle. I'm just saying that it helps to know that when the ego claims that it's going to destroy the world, and the forces of darkness versus the forces of light and all this, that's a scale that humans just don't work on. It's not, it's just Hollywood talk. It's propaganda from a overinflated ego. You keep it personal, keep it close at home, take care of your own business, own your stuff, change your diapers, dispose of your diapers properly. Don't steal diapers from other people's front porches from Amazon. Buy your own. Get the right size. Don't be stapling two smalls to make a large together. That's not comfortable. And don't go guilt tripping your neighbor into borrowing their diapers. They have issues and problems, and they need extras. They may not tell you they do, and sacrifice a pack, but they need those. And you need to take care of your own business first before you can start asking permission to have an opinion about other people's business. Otherwise, other people's business becomes a kind of racket, sort of a black market trade of the ego to avoid its own shortcomings and misery, which is curious. It's a dubious situation where being ambidextrous is not something to brag about. So I'm not going to wish men, children, and girl queens good luck. I think that they make their own luck, and it's just unfortunate that we live in a system that allows immature adults to get through and gain power. Something there really needs to change. Somewhere down the line, there needs to be a filter. There needs to be real adults who have an intelligent child within them. Like they're not dead adults in the sense that they're too serious or struggling to hold on to their inner child. Maybe I'll take back the dead adult thing. I mean, it's a little bit too harsh, and I don't really believe that any adult is ever really dead unless they are, as far as the physical world goes. But let's just say an uninspiring adult. Okay, that's what I mean. Dead can be a metaphor. So adults who are inspiring, who have the prince and the princess on the appropriate thrones flanking them, not on the throne. And there needs to be a filter. There needs to be a system, a societal system set up to maintain the egos of corporations and these these groups or systems that create classism and class warfare. There's no enforceable code of conduct, code of morality, code of principles, a mandatory prerequisite of reasoning versus reactionary policies. Real hardcore adult stuff will start to need to happen in order to truly build something reliable going forwards. We'll see. I mean, it's a I'm ready to be surprised, and but I feel like humanity and the systems that we have in place, they echo through the ages, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of habitual pyramid schemes. What needs to happen for that to change? Has not yet happened in all the different combinations of happenings for thousands of years. So I think at this point, the only thing you can do is start with yourself and share yourself with others as you're in that process of being on the right side of history and not being one of those situations where you're confused all the time. And of course, confusion is a teacher as well. I don't believe in wasting time. I don't believe that time can be wasted. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how you think about what goes around comes around, how your deeds morph into events further down the line, how life records, how your inner life records what you do every second of every day, and how the quality of those actions mirror out into the next day and the next. That it's a living organism spending time. And wasting time is impossible. That's at least my take on things, is that maybe the perception of wasting time that's valuable, because perhaps your conscience is telling you you need to step it up. Your quality of life could be better. You can do more to make your life what you want it to be, which is a good red flag. But there's times when confusion can become more and more dense and isolated, and little glimmers of hope help people. And so I hope that if you're watching this video, that the contributions I put out there can help, and move things along. So that's pretty much it. I'm not sure if you can hear the chainsaw in the background. Hopefully my mic is filtering that out, but there's I live in nature for now. I've been elsewhere recently for an extended period of time, but happy to be back in nature. But my neighbors, they do have a chainsaw apparently. So it's a good note to end on, that things are going on, and our expectations are they're there to come true, and also there to teach us when to be humbled and be appreciative of the successes that we have gotten from that realm, and to not expect everything to always be the same way. That's just not how life works, and we need to mold and flex and have the humility to understand that we are not in charge, that we are transient beings in this world. We have a timeline, time limit, and everyone deserves dignity, the right to pursue a dignified life. And when you threaten that, you threaten their life. And then your life is going to get threatened. It just works that way. That's just how real life works. And so help people, help yourself. Don't put yourself in a position of being a threat just to mimic your own threats to yourself. It goes both ways. There's no escape. And you act out, you act in. It's a simultaneous situation. All the best to you, and thank you for supporting the channel.